I've had the great pleasure of working, as you can see, with the ultimate cool sunglasses wearing Dr. Clore, who is one of the world's most renowned physicists. I think a lot about the communication latency and how that needs to be overcome. You don't think about it, but that kind of latency just between, say, Mars in terms of an economy, think about like something like the stock market and how that sort of distance and that sort of latency would cause a big problem. So I think one of the things we have to kind of come up with is this idea of the galactic internet. I think we need to put more thought into that. I think lasers are an option. I also think quantum entanglement is something that could be really good to help us learn that sort of communication. But that's a big thing that we have to overcome, because we need those communications back and forth between, everyone. And that latency could be, the difference between life and death. And so it's great that you found an asteroid. It's nice that we only have 24 minutes, and in the next hour, when we get that communication after the asteroid hits us, we'll be thankful.
When it comes to challenges, in my view, I would say that coming back to the access to space issue, we need to bring down the cost of access to space. And then at a more human level is bringing everyone with us, looking at people, emerging nations, demographics, underrepresented groups who have always wanted to be a part of space but haven't typically had that opportunity. That's something we can do here and now, whether it's starting with young women in STEM in grade school. That's an easy in today. And then the other part of it is, again, coming back to my space medicine hat, is the bottom line is space is trying to kill us, whether we're talking about radiation, isolation confinement, altered gravity. We have all of these challenges to answer to. We're not going to run out of we're not going to come up to any answers to these problems overnight. So we always need more brains on the space medicine aspect to keep astronauts healthy and surviving, but also thriving and able to perform meaningful work on the surface of the moon, Mars, and beyond.
Marketing influences people influence politics. Politicians follow what the general public wants. That's what they run on. And the general public follows what people market to them. And so, I think marketing to the broader people who necessarily aren't used to having space in their everyday life and getting them excited and realizing just how much they are affected by things that go on in space is the most critical thing that we can do. I largely attribute that the enthusiasm for space that we have going on in the US is because of SpaceX and them broadcasting all of their launches to the general public and putting a ton of marketing to the general public, which gets them really excited, which then gets investors really excited when they fund money into the space ecosystem, allowing a lot of smaller companies like us to exist, which then propels the entire space industry forward. And so I really do think it is a marketing battle now at this point.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is the fact that people expect us to expand to other planets, but no one's going to lose their life. It's the first time we faced this in the original X Prize. So part of the challenge is for people to understand the risk, and it's going to be a massive risk to move humanity off planet to Mars, even to the moon. So we have to change and be far more realistic about the risks that people want to take. If you want to take it, you should be able to take it. In terms of what I see for the future, I personally see great and fabulous things. Every decade has brought us not only advancements here on Earth, but into space. I disagree that all that interest is just because of SpaceX. I think it's across the board, not only SpaceX, but a variety of other companies. Virgin Galactic, of course, has failed to truly deliver, but there's enough space tourism and enough other Blue Origins and other companies that are going to drive interest in space. I also think Hollywood has continued to drive a big interest in space, and they will continue to drive it.
I think our surveillance of space is currently poor, and that's another challenge. We need more sensors with more accuracy in more locations. Our satellites are starting to cause problems for the astronomical community both optical and infrared and radio astronomers are starting to complain about the mega constellations. And in all these areas, my closing remark would be, I think it's an international problem and it needs an international solution.
Definitely need greater diversity in space, particularly of disciplinary diversity, of geographic diversity, gender diversity, and so on. We also need greater cooperation between nations, between different knowledge systems and thinking systems. We need greater pathway for indigenous knowledge systems to be informing some of the strategies and the ways that we're undertaking, particularly our technology pathways. So I guess that situational awareness, that our challenge is to start looking at our responsibilities, to start asking, we have GMO modified organisms. Do we talk about terrestrial and extraterrestrial? Is that part of our packaging and marketing for the future, so we understand what has come from space, what is not? We need to start to understand that work and leisure tension that we're going to have as we're developing capabilities and what's funding our activities.
Humanity is facing major global challenges at the moment. We can say that there are two main types: social type and environmental type. Social type, let's say that the main one is poverty. I believe it's poverty. And poverty is a consequence of the lack of jobs, the lack of employment, because this is the only way to empower people to allow to go out of poverty. And the same thing happened with the environment. We are deteriorating our environment. We are burning our forest in the Amazon. We are contributing to the climate change. The poles are melting. The water level in the sea is getting higher. So we really have a lot of problems, of major problems that we have to face. Humanity has to face. Now, talking about space. Space is a new dimension where humanity is entering.
Well, I think that one that is that we will need to overcome is more women in leading this sector, for sure. That's one very good point. We need more multidisciplinary companies to work for and with the space sector, especially in developing countries. I think that we will need more small companies to join big missions, and then they can join the big companies for more missions. So I think this is a good way that we need to overcome these challenges and make the data that we can receive from space more accessible and more reliable for many solutions that we will need here, for many solutions for our global challenges. So as my final thoughts, I can say a phrase that I always use, that is, the sky is not the limit, it's only the first stage.
I think one of the most important things we can do now, and we're very engaged with that work globally, is to grow the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs and young people who can be the next engineers, who will build the vehicles, who will take us, who will create new horizons for all of us, and who will solve global and local challenges. And we've been doing this for 16 years all over the world with kids 13 to 18 years old. And I have to tell you that I've come away with a 4-letter word, and that word is hope. These kids are just knocking things out of the park. They are so amazing. They do such extraordinary work. They don't know they can't, and we don't tell them. And we don't make a box and say, make this, and if you make it bigger, you win. It's make whatever you want. And one of the categories is aerospace and aviation.